What's up guys, Canon here, and welcome to my first walkthrough video on my YouTube channel. This is going to be a walkthrough of my track Liberty, which just came out on Intensity Recordings. I'm going to try and show you a little bit about my creative process, a bit about the elements of the track, and also hopefully a few little tips and tricks along the way for all you producers out there. So yeah, I think maybe a good place to start would be kind of how the track actually came together in the first place. So the track actually started out as a bootleg. It was a bootleg of the Justin Prime and Sabers track Neutron. I was preparing my year mix for 2021 and I wanted to include that track, so I love the breakdown, but I wanted to give it a different drop, give it a little different twist. So I thought I'd make a different drop. I never made Dirty Dutch before. I'd always wanted to make it. So I thought, okay, let's try and do a little Dirty Dutch drop on this. And that's kind of how it started. It was in a different key originally. You might have heard it on the year mix. And eventually I decided, hey, let's make an original out of it. So I decided to make a breakdown. And now we've got the track as you see it today. So, or as you hear it today. So yeah, let's take a little listen. Let's familiarize ourselves. Those of you who haven't listened to it yet, I'll just play a little bit of it, first break and the first drop, and then we'll get into the walkthrough itself. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so hopefully that gives a little bit of a snippet of the track. So yeah, I think we'll get straight into the drop as the first thing. So that's kind of the main event in the track. So let's talk about the elements. We'll go through the elements one by one, kind of in groups, I guess, so we can get through as much as possible. We don't want to dwell too much on individual things. So we'll start off with the kick, foundational element of the track. Initially we got a top kick. Or a punch kick, maybe you could say. And this one is from My God Is a Dancer bootleg, actually, from a few years ago. I think maybe like 3 years ago or something, 2019. And actually, this brings me on to a good point. So for producers, using samples or kind of collecting samples that you use regularly is something I really recommend. So it's kind of like making your own sample pack. So you can see here I've got a sample pack called Canon Samples. This is where I collate all my samples that I use regularly. I've exported stuff from my previous tracks. And this way you've got this kind of collection where you can quickly grab all the elements that you usually use that kind of makes up your signature sound set. And then you can quickly bring these things together when you're making a new track so that it's immediately got your sound in it, basically. So really good workflow kind of thing, and also helpful for having a consistent sound as well. So I really recommend that. But throughout this track, actually, I've used a lot of elements that I've used in previous tracks, but just kind of played with them often in a new way. So the next layer of the kick is going to be the low end part, which is this one right here. So this one's from Justin Prime's pack for 7, 8, 9, 10. If we take a look here, processing on kicks, I always do pretty simplistic processing on kicks. So I've got just very basic EQ here and an LFO tool for the sidechain. And I've used that on the other kick elements as well. So this is the kind of high-end grit layer, giving a bit of character. And then we've got this hardstyle layer, which is really beefing it up quite a lot. I wanted the kick to sound bigger than a typical Dirty Dutch kick because I was trying to go for a bit of a BIGROOM Dirty Dutch crossover thing here. So that's why I did that. Then moving on to some of the other elements, although just briefly noting as well, I used a fruity balance to kind of automate the tail on this hardstyle layer as well. Okay, yeah, so moving on to some of the other elements, we've got claps here. So we've got a kind of crispy, like a character layer for the clap. This one you really hear, cuts through the mix more, and then there's the kind of reverby one, which kind of fills the space a little bit more. It's pretty simple stuff. Then moving on to some of the other percussions, we've got 3 kind of main percussion layers here. Now I really like percussions, so I've got I like to play around with quite a few different things in them, or in my percussion parts. Like to make it quite detailed. I feel like this makes the track a bit more dynamic and kind of helps with the groove. It's just more interesting to listen to, I think. And then we've also got these marching band snares. Which I feel help with the groove. Pretty in the back, you can't really hear them so much in the mix, but I feel like they're still nice to have and do help with the groove. And then kind of a percussion thing, you've got these bass stab layers. I really like bass stabs. I've got 4 of them here layered. Each of them has their kind of own different tone. All providing a different bit of character. This one providing the transient. And some panning on those as well to make them feel quite wide. That's probably most of the main drums. And then we've got the shaker here in the kind of switch up section that comes later. This part right here. And that kind of, I guess, follows the kick in a way. And I feel like it just fits in quite nicely in that section to make it a bit different. Okay, so moving on to kind of leads, synths, these kind of elements. We'll take a look here. We've got the classic Dirty Dutch lead. Oh, it's frozen up again. Yeah, you probably noticed earlier when I was playing the track, my PC kind of froze up slightly. It seems to do that for some reason on this project. So sorry about that, but hopefully shouldn't be too much of a problem for the rest of it. There we go. It's the lead. It's a pretty simple Dirty Dutch lead, the main one. Just looks like this in Serum. And then we've got a couple support layers as well. Just filling the kind of width. And you can see that the meat of this sound really comes in the processing. We've got camel crushers here, saturation, reverb and OTT all really beefing up what is a really simple sound, because without the processing it sounds like this. So very basic, pretty shit. It sounds nice when you turn all that stuff on. And then on these support leads, also some images to widen them even more. And obviously some compression on the bus to glue all the leads together a little bit. Then moving on to kind of more supporting bits, we've got this kind of chord thing here. Let's play this. So I really like these big kind of trancey chord stab things. I thought I'd try and include this in the Dirty Dutch style just because I don't hear that too often. Thought it would be interesting. And I did a little filter on it to kind of bring it in with a lot of resonance on that as well. So it's got that wall kind of sound. Let's try and find that. Yeah, just here. similar processing on this one. Okay. Then moving forward, I think that's most of the kind of synth elements. The drop is very simple in that regard. Then we'll just briefly summarize the FX. So we got your typical crashes and downsweep kind of stuff. Sweeps, whatever. Tonal rises. And then something I just want to highlight is these little small sweeps here. This is something that I first noticed it in a Sabers remix, actually, for a Marlowe track. And they have these little mini sweeps here, periodically, like every bar in the drop, and it really feels like it moves the drop forward. It's like kind of sucking you forward. So I thought that was kind of a nice technique. You kind of feel that subtly in the background. Just, yeah, pulling you forward a little bit. Got our standard kind of fill elements, Prider snares, electro kind of stuff in the fill. I really like these kind of electro sounds. And then a couple of fills from my own samples here, which I just kind of arranged together. Oh, and then in the second part of the drop, actually, I forgot this part. We've got this acid shot kind of thing, which is one of my favorite parts in the track. It's kind of like a switch up, something to make it more than just the typical kind of dirty Dutch leads. I thought this would take a bit of the influences from all the techno stuff we've got going on at the moment and bring that into this a little bit. Actually, this tom as well I've got layered with that, providing a bit of low end. Cool. So moving on, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the drop. So let's move to the breakdown now, and let's take a look at some of the elements and also some of the ambient kind of stuff that I did in the breakdowns. Okay, so we'll start out with the synth kind of elements, the melodic kind of elements. Let's see what we've got in this pattern here. Okay, quite a lot, it would seem. Looks like I put quite a few bits in this one pattern. I don't normally do that. It's better to be kind of having things separated out, because then you can control them easier when they come in. Just a bit less work, workflow wise. So we'll just separate them out here. So obviously we've got that main pluck sound, which is a few layers. It's like a chord part here. If we go to the pattern, you can see it's here. It's got a June one. This is providing the width. Again, processing on this, compression, saturation, pretty standard stuff here. That's up for a filter, I think. And then we've got the main kind of character layer of the pluck. And this is what's really standing out here in this part of the breakdown. I've got a bit crusher actually on the pluck bus here, and that's giving that crackly kind of effect. It's actually after the reverb here. I liked the sound with it after the reverb on the bus, and a bit of EQ there on the end. And that gives you this nice full sound. Then we've got pads as well in here. Pad 1 and 2 just on the same bus here. Kind of rolled off the highs a little bit, give a bit more room for the pluck, and then a little bit of a cut on the lows. It's filling it out, and then we've got a big respace to deal with the low end. And obviously a mid-side EQ here, just making sure that the low end is mono on those bass elements. That's a really good tip for your mixes. If you're not already doing that, it really helps to tighten up your low end doing that. Okay, Okay, and then we can look at some of the more ambient elements here. So I've actually got a vocal here from my girlfriend Harley, who you may also know. I'm just going to try and unsolo that. And this is kind of filling the space as well. So that's in combination with this vocal ambience layer as well, which is a bit more subtle. And I think it's really good if you do, if you do know a vocalist personally, I would say definitely see if they're down to record a few of these kind of like ad-libby things for you, because having these kinds of things that other people don't have access to can really help set you apart and make you, stand out and have your tracks can have something special in them. So I definitely recommend that. And then also we've got some atmosphere stuff here. So this kind of background stuff. I think these details are really important, especially in breakdowns. It just gives something for your ears to kind of tune into, and it makes it feel like you're really in a big texture. It's kind of a weird way to describe it probably, but it's just what came to mind. And there's a cave dripping sound here as well. Little reverse thing. It's good to have these kind of little elements every kind of 4 bars or so. I would say you want to have something happen in your track so that you're keeping interest. For me, like if I don't hear something every 4 bars or 8 bars at worst, I'm going to lose interest. I want to hear something different like at that point. Even got this little acid thing here with a delay on it. Sorry, my mix is pretty messy right now. I think that's quite a nice little bit of ear candy there. Let's see, what else do we have? I think that's probably most of the ambient stuff. Immediately after only 4 bars, I'm actually bringing in some claps. I think it's really important to get some movement going quickly in your track. Like long gaps with nothing going on in your breakdowns, people are going to lose interest. Like in a live setting, the crowd doesn't want to just be kind of standing around generally. Like at a festival, this kind of stuff can work better, but I would say especially in a club, you want to have something percussive going, like whether that be a clap or something else, almost all the time. And then you've got a kind of a groove and a rhythm set almost all the time. Computer's playing up. Okay, yeah, and then we've got this little pause section before the big saws. Classic big room thing. Little short riser, I just used silent for that. I think I just took a saw wave and pitched it up basically. Looks like there's a square wave as well. And then the reverse. The big synths. And then, of course, the big synth stack. So we could take a little look at that as well. Probably nothing too groundbreaking in here, but let's just pick apart the elements. So on the big super saws, I made sure to beef them up with a bunch of compression, saturation, all the usual stuff. And I've also got here a channel pitch automation, so it's like kind of bending around. I think that makes these kind of sections just a little bit more interesting. I just wanted to try and do something different there, rather than just a flat saw. I've got a glitch on here as well. I think that's doing a little bit of a tape stop effect. I think that is actually on. Let's see. Yeah, it is. Actually, that's what's providing most of the effect there. I think the pitch is on one of the other sounds, but yeah, the tape stop gives that little bend. Often with your big saw stacks, it's nice to have a cleaner layer kind of in the middle to provide some body, and then the wider, huge layer with loads of reverb and kind of fill the sides and space. This is the character layer. So this is what makes the saws have their own kind of unique sound beyond just being a big saw. You always want to have something like this. Just noticed I didn't actually EQ this. I should have EQ'd this to take the low end out, but it seems like there wasn't too much going on there. And then there's a white noise layer, and that's just emphasizing the lead itself, making it cut through the mix a bit. And then I think we've got a transient part here. Yeah, so I used a little percussion just so that each time the lead would hit, it would have this little transient part on it so that it cuts through. Obviously, we've got the claps going here. And then there's also the bass elements as well. Mid bass. And the sub. Both kind of filling out that space. And then, yeah, that's pretty much most of the big stack. I think that is muted. Yeah, I didn't mean to have that there. And then going into the build-up. Not much to talk about here. Pretty standard EDM build-up. I like to use multiple snares in my build-ups. I think it creates a bit more energy than just having one. So you've got this kind of snare roll here with the main snare. I start out with that pitch down. Not pitch down, sorry, with a filter, so it kind of comes in slowly. While we tease the drop lead. And then a pre-drop fill, just a sample from, again, one of my old bootlegs. Nothing really there. I didn't add a vocal on this track because I couldn't find a vocal that I liked. And if you can't find a vocal you like, it's probably better to just not have one. I think a lot of these pre-drop vocals are pretty played out these days in big room stuff. Like, they're kind of cringy, so I just thought it'd be better to just leave it and then let the fill kind of do the talking. So yeah, so that's most of the build-up. And then let's just talk a little bit about the second breakdown orchestral part as well, because I really wanted to try and do something different there. Have something you wouldn't find in a big room breakdown too much by having this kind of string section. So for this, I use Contact. It's amazing for real instrument sounds. I hugely recommend it. Best value for money investment I've ever made, plugin wise, I would say, for just what it allows you to do. I used a staccato string, and I kind of composed this. I tried to make it sound realistic. I'm no string player. I don't really know how it's played, but I tried to get something that kind of almost sounded like it could be played. This is just what came out of it. It's nice to have movement over an 8-bar progression. I think most people already do this, have full 8-bar progressions, but try to really add a little bit of a change melodically there. It really helps keep your interest, so that you want to actually listen for 8 bars of that same progression. I also added in some kind of continuous strings here as well, so it feels like we're building towards a kind of crescendo at this part of the track. And I think that's pretty much most of it. Obviously, in the breakdown, we got the kick section then coming, more energy. Bringing in some percussions toward the end. And then I think the final thing that I haven't really talked about yet is probably the hardstyle kick section. I thought I'd try and do a different switch to the first drop. So in this part, we've got a little kind of hardstyle kick. It's not really a true hardstyle kick, but it's just this hardstyle kick sample I found, and then I layered it with kind of like still the normal big room kind of clean top kick. I'm just going to lag out. And a little bit of a fill thing there to introduce it. then a hardstyle kind of fill, which I made to take us out of the drop. And there you go. That's pretty much everything in the track, really. Hopefully you enjoyed this. It was kind of just a quick overview. It's my first time doing something like this, so if you've got any suggestions, anything you'd like me to do differently, let me know. I mean, thanks for anyone who stayed to the end as well. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. And yeah, I'm looking to do a lot more of these kind of videos in the future. So if you've got any video ideas, anything you'd like to see me do, maybe remakes, kind of specific tutorial videos, or maybe even just making tracks from scratch, like showing how I put a track together, could all be really fun. So let me know what you think, and I'll definitely try and do more of these in the future. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully see you guys on the next one.